Hey D&D TikTok, do you ever have one of those days where you start to think about what character you might play in your next Dungeons and Dragons game or other TTRPG, and you start thinking about Alan Moore? Yeah, I mean comic book author Alan Moore, who has brought us some epic classics like Swamp Thing and The Watchmen, just to name a few out of his huge catalog. He also has spoken out that he considers himself to be a real life wizard, a magus. And not only that, that he is in an occult battle with Grant Morrison, another comic book writer and so called occultist who has written a ton of different titles like The Nameless. This is my favorite comic book cover ever, by the way. But on top of all of that, you start to think about how Alan Moore, considering himself to be a wizard, also claims to have had several real life encounters with fictional comic book character John Constantine, the protagonist from the Hellblazer series. And he's not alone in that. Actually, several writers who have written for Hellblazer claim that they have had an encounter with John Constantine in real life where they, at the very least, see him in a bar. But you take all that into account and you start to think, wouldn't it be interesting to play a wizard in Dungeons and Dragons or your other TTRPGs who is Alan Moore, and this is just what happens to him. This is where he goes when he falls asleep. When he falls asleep in Earth, in our real world, he transfers to your Dungeons and Dragons universe. When he falls asleep in that Dungeons and Dragons universe, he wakes up in the real world and writes comic books. And while he is with the adventuring party, he is on a quest to possibly find John Constantine or another one of the characters he created, or maybe one of the villains who started to manifest in the real world. Maybe it has to do with his battle with Grant Morrison. But the bottom line is, if I ever have the opportunity to play a wizard, I will absolutely just be straight out Alan Moore in a Dungeons and Dragons setting. How about you?